I now recognize Representative Tom Malinowski from New Jersey, who's the Vice Chair of the full committee, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for going to Kiev. Thank you for everything that you have done and that President Biden has done to stand with Ukraine, and for showing the world once again what principled American leadership in the world can do. It's been absolutely extraordinary. I have some questions that mostly will focus on sanctions, the economic side of this war. Yesterday, as you know, the House passed legislation that I led with Representative Joe Wilson that was designed to encourage the use of frozen, blocked Russian assets ultimately in the rebuilding of Ukraine. And I was delighted to see today the President, the administration, embrace this basic principle that we should be using the wealth that built the Putin regime to rebuild the country that Putin is destroying. Most of my questions about that have been answered just in the last 24 hours. I did want to ask one question that I think as we work together on this will probably be pretty crucial, and that is, you know, we're talking about the oligarchs and the yachts and the villas and bank accounts and so forth. But if we accept that principle, do you think it might also apply to state assets? For example, the much larger amount of money that has been frozen around the world belonging to the Russian central bank?
In short, yes. And this is one of the things that we've asked our own lawyers to look at, which is what authorities would be needed potentially to seize those assets, but not only to seize them, but to use them in exactly the ways that you and Congressman Wilson have suggested in your legislation.
Okay, thank you. More broadly, it seems to me that this is a moment kind of like 9/11, a moment when people and countries around the world need to choose what side they're on. We've imposed extraordinary sanctions with our allies, but I am concerned that those sanctions may be undermined by other countries that may view participation as optional, maybe hedging their bets. We have countries around the world continuing to purchase not just Russian oil, but diamonds, for example. We have Roman Abramovich's yacht sailing into a harbor in Turkey. I'm particularly concerned about countries in the Persian Gulf. I'm sure you've seen the reports of dozens of Russian officials, business people close to Putin owning property in the United Arab Emirates, and in the last few weeks, significant potential targets of sanctions, moving assets into the UAE in particular. Clearly they're doing this because they believe that if they are sanctioned, they will be safe in these countries. So I guess what I want to ask you is, are they right? Will they be safe?
We are looking around the world at where resources are moving, as well as where countries or institutions may be trying to help evade the sanctions or in any way undermine them. Thanks to the colleagues in the Senate, we now have working for us a sanctions coordinator who reports directly to me, Jim O'Brien. This is one of his areas of focus, to look at sanctions evasion and to make sure that we are doing everything we can to cut off any such evasion. We're working that as well with our G7 partners. And I'd just say very quickly two things. Look, it's much better in the first instance if we can get any countries in question to voluntarily make sure that they're joining us in implementing the sanctions and not allowing them to be evaded. But if necessary, to use authorities that we have to take action against those that are not, that's certainly something we're looking at. Right. Last thing is this. I mentioned this in my opening remarks. A number of countries around the world are rethinking their relationships, including their relationship with Russia, going forward. And some of them have had relationships with Russia going back decades, including at times when we couldn't have the same kind of relationship with them, and now we can. We also need to make sure that we are helping advance that transition and doing it in a way that, as a strategic matter, moves things in the right direction. And that's something we're factoring in as well.
Well, thank you. I hope we recognize who has the power in our relationship with some of these countries, and particularly the Gulf countries. Ask the question, are they America's allies in the Gulf or Russia's allies in the Gulf?
Gentleman's time has
And I yield
expired.
back.
I now recognize